Hey, Lorain County wrestling fans, welcome back to another episode of the Matt Report, brought to you by our friends at Cobos Insurance Center. Before we get things rolling today, just want to remind you that Cobos Insurance is locally owned and they are very proud supporters of the local high school wrestling scene here in Lorain County. So please consider Cobos Insurance for all your insurance needs. And you see the man to my right here, your left, the one and only Tom Evans back in studio here to join me for this week's Matt Report. Tom, welcome back, my friend. How are we doing?
It's great to be back. Too long of an absence there.
Yeah, I'm sure it's nice to get out of the house and get back out and about, back in the normal swing of things, as you've caught us here at the end of the wrestling season. Of course, state tournament right around the corner and everything like that, but it's been a heck of a season here in Lorain County. And let's start with the Lorain County League, Tom. They had the conference tournament over at Firelands this past weekend in Columbia, as they have done all year. They dominated.
Absolutely, and hats off to Ty Stillman and the crew over at Firelands. Outstanding job of hosting the tournament last weekend. But yeah, Columbia came out on top with 188 points with four champions and Fry, Schulke, Zook, and Garrow, the usual suspects over there. You know, the kind of guys that have led them all year. Firelands comes in there with a real strong second place with three champs and 140.5 points. And the Williams brothers, Cameron and Kevin and Connor Rogers, have been steady all year. And then Keystone in a real strong third with 121. Clearly with the champ, Black River with 2, and Brookside with 1. So a good tournament overall. Little hats off to Tristan Green. He stayed hot and on a roll. It looks like those top teams are really hitting on all 8 cylinders, getting ready for the sectional tournament.
Now, one of the top guys that unfortunately we didn't get to see, his season came to a close a couple weeks ago with a bad injury, Ruben Pina Lorenzana from Firelands. Just a tough way for the senior to go out. I know he was on pace to maybe set a school record for wins and everything like that, but just a tough way for his season to end.
Yeah, he got his 150th win right before he ended up hurt over there. But, you know, Ruben was over there cheering his teammates on it, doing the things that you need to do. I see that Ruben's committed to Cleveland State for next year.
Yes, he is.
They went down and watched the Cleveland State-Kent State dual meet, so nothing but the best for Ruben. He's a class act. He's a tough wrestler, and I know that Firelands believes that they'd have been right in the hunt had Ruben been healthy.
No question about that. So, you know, as we look at the county as a whole, because I know we want to talk about the SWC, they have their conference tournament this weekend over at Olmsted Falls. But I know you were looking at some of the county records as a whole. What kind of jumped off the page to you there?
Well, there's a whole lot here, and some of these guys we've been talking about all year, but some of them we haven't been. At 106 pounds, Mike Fry from Columbia has kind of quietly amassed 30 wins there. That's kind of a natural when your practice partner is probably Cole Schulke every day. So you're going to get better or you're going to get out.
Yeah.
But Carson Morris from Midview and Ian Rotary, both over 20 wins on the year. 113 pounds, Cole Schulke. He's been the dominant there, 35-2 on the year. I think probably up around 37 or 38 wins right now, but he stayed hot. Tony Morosco from Avon quietly amassed 20 wins down there. And then you also have Keon McKinney, Gage Baraboo, and Van Anthony Trusno, names that we've all heard before, and we'll talk about this weekend going into the conference tournament. At 120 pounds, Ashton Clifton from Vermilion quietly amassed 22 wins over at Vermilion. Isaac Green, and again, another one of those usual suspects for us. Jonathan Tilley from Keystone up over 20 wins also there. At 126 pounds, we all know what that's all about. Mike Valerino, 16-0. Creston Shaw from Vermilion's also over 20. Blake Cancel, again, quietly amassing 15 wins. And John Foy from Avon over there. At 132, Nate Bower, North Ridgeville, 29 wins with 29 pins going into last weekend. So something's going to give there before too long. Jack Valerino also with 20 wins. Louis Strama from Vermilion, again, over 20 wins on the year. At 138, Nate Perry, rock solid, over 30 wins on the year. State qualifier from last year. Mason Fitch from Avon. That'll be interesting this week at the SWC. 144, Diego Morales from Keystone up at 36 wins. Andrew Conley, Olmsted Falls. Riley Atkins of Avon and Aiden Kaiser of Vermilion also in there. 150, Hunter Anderson, Owen Kaiser. They met each other early at the Vermilion tournament.
That's right, yeah.
They won't see each other again. Midview's 1, Vermilion's 2, but a couple names there. And also Connor Holm. We know Connor Holm's quality wrestler, state qualifier there as well. At 157, can't talk about 157 without talking about Tristan Green. And Tristan up over 30 wins. His 2 losses, I believe, all came at the Ironman this year. So he hasn't lost since the first weekend of the year.
That's not too bad.
And then Tony Governor, Tony's sitting over there. Tony's got 32 or 33 wins right now, 6 losses. I think 2 or 3 of those losses are to Tristan.
Wow.
So Tony Governor's not taking a backseat to anybody else. Joe Marconi, we've talked about him for the last 2 years as well. At 165, Jack, his brother, up over 30 wins on the year. Garrett Zook, he just gets better and better all the time. I've loved watching Garrett the last 3 years. You know, he's up over 30 wins this year, but he's gotten better. He's a hard worker. He's got to be a great guy to have in the room for Coach Giuliani over there. 175, Adam Schumacher of Avon with 29 wins. 190, one of my other county favorites, Hayden Garrow.
Yeah.
Missed all last year to a knee injury. Played football like a warrior this year for the Raiders over there, up over 30 wins. Ryan Allville returning at Amherst. So some usual names there. Ross Allville at Amherst at 215. And Clay Broadhurst of Avon Lake. Again, we know how tough Clay is. And at heavyweight, there's some really characters here, but some really good wrestlers. Cameron Carreras of Clearview, got to see him last week. Boy, is he athletic. He is very. We talked about him.
For him, too.
Yeah, Austin Dye from Midview up over 20. Eddie Powers at 28 wins on the year. And Louis Gallagher from Avon Lake. That'll be interesting to see how the SWC shakes out. So those are some of the records. Some of those guys we've talked about, some of them we haven't. Right. But I think that those guys are all up over 20 wins. They deserve some mention. Absolutely.
You look at some of those names with the Columbias and the Avon Lakes, and we've gotten to mention them a ton, but some of those kids for Amherst and even Midview at times, we haven't really gotten to dive into them as much as we would have liked to this season. So very nice to see the success that they've had on the mats, even though we haven't gotten to them as much as we maybe would have wanted to this year. So you said it a couple times there, Tom, looking at those records. SWC tournament this weekend over there at Olmsted Falls. What do we expect? I'm sure Avon Lake going in is the favorite, but who could maybe challenge them?
Well, I think Avon feels that they're right on their heels and don't go to sleep on Elyria,
right?
Because Elyria's guys know it's tournament time and they know when to pick up the wrestling. But this is another one of those conference meets where you've got 8 schools in the conference, and every team in that league potentially could have a champion. So you don't see that too often. Some teams, Ridgeville's had a tough year. We've talked with Joel quite a bit, but Eddie Powers he's going to be right in the battle of Ian Rotary. He's going to be right in the battle thick of things over there. So each school has a chance to make some damage over there. The team title is going to come down to Avon Lake. I think Avon and Elyria, see how those 3 shake itself out.
That's probably the 3 that I would have at the top there as well. And Elyria is certainly someone to keep an eye on. You look at what Coach Torres has done in his first season. It's been up and down. They battled injuries and things like that. But guys like Kyle McKinney have really kind of helped carry them along through an up and down roller coaster season so far. So we'll see how things shake out at Olmsted Falls this weekend in the SWC. Obviously, state tournament right around the corner and everything like that. What else do we have to look forward to here at the tail strap?
It was funny because I was asking Firelands last weekend with the open seating now. Schools can choose to where they're going to go, and I asked Firelands with the 3, with the Williams brothers and Connor Rogers. I said, "Where are you guys going for sectional?" I think last year they went out to Painesville, Harvey, but they can also go. Kenston's also got a Division II sectional, so they're going to kind of have their choice of where they're going to go. Okay. And just right down the street from us, Vermilion. Vermilion's going the other way. I think Vermilion's out of Sandusky. So, and Vermilion's got a real nice squad this year. So, Division II is just crazy. A lot of teams going in a lot of different directions. But with the schools being able to seed themselves, I think you try to do what's best to get as many kids through as you can the next week. A school like Keystone, I don't think Chris Von Driscoll is worried too much about where he goes for a sectional. He knows what Tristan, he knows what Morales, he knows what those guys are going to do. So he's just going to go and let it fall where it may.
Interesting how the picking and choosing kind of goes with the sectionals. I'm sure coaches have very split opinions on it. I'm sure you have a split opinion on it at times.
Well, we actually proposed this to the Coaches Association 20 years ago, and the state shut it down because back then Columbus was doing it. Columbus had 1 district, 2 sectionals, and they were seeding way back when, and schools up here were saying, well, why can't we do that? And I still remember very vividly, it was when Walsh Jesuit, your alma mater, was very, very good. And they were probably they were in the top 5 in the country, and so was St. Ed's. And Bill Barter stood up at a meeting and says, I'm going to go wherever St. Ed's goes. And people said, Bill, why would you do that? Why won't you go away from St. Ed's? And Bill says, because if I go where St. Ed's is, I know from after the first week, I'm always going to be away from them in the bracket. and really, and you sit and think about it, that's genius, but that kind of put a crimp on it a little bit. Nobody wants St. Ed's and Walsh Jesuit.
Right, no, you don't. Especially not back then. So. So very interesting. Yeah, tons still to look forward to here in the wrestling season. Again, SWC tournament this weekend at Olmsted Falls, the states and all that right around the corner. So plenty to look forward to. Tom, an awesome pleasure to have you back here for these last couple of shows. Looking forward to the final stretch here.
Great to be back. I think I told you last week, it's not the same watching on track wrestling. It's just not the same. So to be able to get back in the gym, to be over at Farland's last week and thank them for their hospitality, sit down with my good friend Rick Twining, who does a computer for the tournament. It's just fun to watch the wrestling again.
There you go. It's not Lorain County High School wrestling without Tom Evans in the fray, so no doubt about that. So that'll pretty much do it for this week. For Kristen Bauer behind the camera and for Tom Evans, I'm Rocco Ducci saying thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Matt Report brought to you by Cobos Insurance Center. We'll see you next time.